Well, it's crazy how a couple days can change the weather so much. I went from working in the shop in layers and my bibs to it might hit 69 degrees today. But none of that has anything to do with what I'm working on. This is a dual mass flywheel from a Volkswagen TDI, and you can kind of see right there that this is offset. It has twisted, so I can't even get to the bolts to remove this until I retwist it. So I'm gonna just try to give it a shot here. I don't really care what happens to the flywheel, so I'm going to see if I can retwist it back to where it came from. We'll go from there. Anytime I have the chance to take a bolt out, I guess I will. I was hoping that maybe the mass of the flywheel would prevent this from spinning, but it's clearly just running along. I'm kind of surprised there's not a whole lot of compression to hold it back. Well, in the spirit of using what you got, I took the old pressure plate, welded it to this center of the dual mass flywheel, and it is also located on this dowel pin right here. So now, with any luck, I should be able to just rotate the flywheel gear and hold on to this. I also haven't determined yet which way is the correct way to spin this. So we'll try it the other way too. I clearly have it moving, but I have not utilized my method of removing what bolts I can while I can. Now this dust shield that goes between the engine and transmission is supposed to be mostly flat, with the exception of that tab right there. That looks much nicer. So you can see here that these two bolt holes are closer together than most. So I can orient my new flywheel like so and just get a couple bolts started. Now I have this service removable purple Loctite, and I'm going to put that on the 4 remaining screws and install those. It doesn't take a whole lot. That's probably more than I need. Now I can remove these last two. Loctite them and reinstall them. Now there probably is a correct torque sequence and spec. But I'm willing to bet that's going to be just fine. Now we have quite a bit of filth from, I don't know, shipping, manufacturing, this or that. So I'm going to clean and prep this surface with some brake clean and get that ready for my clutch disc, my pressure plate, my alignment tool, and the assembly bolts there. I've got my alignment tool here installed, and I'm going to just slide this all together. And once again, just start a couple bolts opposite each other. So now that my bolts are all started, there's a right and a lucky way to do this. Right way, lucky way. The right way is to verify that if I spin this alignment tool in any direction, that it'll still go in and out smoothly. I don't want to bind. I want to make sure that this pilot is centerline with the crankshaft. Well, it's plastic and sometimes things can bend. So by verifying our fitment here and there as we tighten this up, and we're also spinning this tool as we go. We want to make sure it can go in at any direction if it is bent. Now we can verify that we are centered all along the way. I'm going to back out each one of these singularly, put some purple Loctite back on them, and reinstall them and get them torqued down. It blows my mind how that can work. How we can drive a plate that's also driving the flywheel like it's got its own clutch or torque converter. Strange. And one more time, we verify that that alignment tool goes in any direction. One last job to do before we slap that transmission back in, and that is our spline lubricant. We are going to apply that to our alignment tool, like so. And we're just working it around. You want to know why I can already tell it's going to be a great day? I've ripped both of my gloves before I even started, just putting them on. It's going to be a great day. Well, moment of truth time. Can we get this transmission back in easier than it came out? I have the new throwout bearing and slave cylinder in, and I also took a little bit more of the shifter off right here. It was probably about that high. So with any luck, we'll be able to just pop it right in. I also did remove this lower intercooler pipe. Maybe that'll give me a little bit more room to work. I'm hoping that in a couple minutes this will be ready to bolt in. Let's not drop it. I will show you what's hung up. Okay, we are at the unibody. We are very close to that lower A-arm mount, if not touching. This is the other side of that A-arm mount. And our CV flange is just right there. So we can't bring this end of the transmission up anymore. Bringing the engine down doesn't seem to help. But we just got to clear that little bit right there. Yes! I'm going to try to just push it in, wiggle it, but I do believe the shaft is in line with that hole. If at first you don't succeed, try again. Got it. Yes. So now I have it aligned on that input shaft. I had to spin the transmission a little bit while it's in gear. Shake it, shake it, shake it. Play with my angles on the transmission jack. I got it to the point where it slid right in. And that makes me happy. Now all I have to do is just bolt things back together. Put the CV shafts back in. Bleed the clutch. Start driving. We're pretty much there. Well, all of the engine and transmission mounts are back in place, and everything is bolted up tight. I made 2 rounds around the bell housing bolts just to make sure that everything was tight and nothing was bound up or crooked. Feels good to be making some progress. I now have the CV shafts both in place, the spindles both connected back to the lower control arms via ball joints. The turbo intercooler hose on the lower side is buttoned back up. It's in place on top. I'm pretty sure it's time to lower the car down and put the top end back together. We'll put a little bit of fluid in the master cylinder, which is also the brake and clutch. It Y's out. So I'll fill that up, open the bleeder, just keep working and watch that bleeder and see if it just starts flowing by itself. We are pretty much all back together, and I believe it is time for a test start and a test shift. Down there somewhere right by that white piece down there, that is where the bleeder is. There it is. And so I was able to get it to where I have pedal just by pumping, and then doing a quarter turn on that bleeder screw and letting fluid come through, keeping the reservoir full at all times. Well, that's pretty cool. Fired up. Clutch action is working. So it's time to button up the rest of this, let the battery charge for a little while, and give it a test drive.